Hey folks, AWR Hawkins, Breitbart News. I want to let you know the Democrats are already talking about the gun controls they can pass if they're able to secure universal background checks. And we've talked about this at Breitbart. Not just over the last few weeks or the last few months, but over the past few years we've talked about the fact that universal background checks lead to other gun controls. Universal background checks are insidious. We've used that phrase, okay? You look at California. California adopted universal background checks in the early 1990s. 7 years later, they were followed by what? Firearm registration. And now you look at that state. Not only do you have firearm registration, you have a 10-day waiting period. You have a limit on how many guns you can buy a month, whether those are long guns or short guns. You have all kinds of requirements tied to buying a gun, including passing a certain gun safety test to receive a certificate from the state before you ever buy a gun, okay? So what happens is once you have universal background checks, other gun controls come into play very quickly. And Senator Chris Murphy, just Sunday, was on Meet the Press. And when he was talking with Chuck Todd about the odds of passing universal background checks, he said, look, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but let's talk about this. There are other things we can do once we get those checks. And some of the things he talked about were permits for gun owners. In other words, before you could buy a gun, you'd have to get a permit from the government. And he talked about expanding the criteria by which people are put on the prohibited purchasers list. And what that means is they want to broaden the criteria, add this and add that, so that more people would be banned from buying a firearm. Folks, you got to pay attention. The Democrats pursue universal background checks for a reason. Following the Las Vegas shooting, October 1, 2017, again, Senator Chris Murphy was on CNN's State of the Union, and he described universal background checks as the North Star of gun control for the Democrats.
What we know is that the most important intervention is background checks. It's the intervention supported by the largest number of Americans. And so, yes, that would be the clear next step. That should be our North Star as we try to figure out how to proceed.
Why is it the North Star? Why is it the guiding light? It's the guiding light because if they can get that, they can get anything.